Welcome to Touhyville. Steve Touhy, Cheryl Touhy with you here, hanging out, enjoying our morning. And this is an exciting morning for us because we've talked about it for the last couple of weeks, actually for a month, and then I had to go away and different things. But we're excited to welcome to the program Dr. Nicki Monti. First of all, good morning, Dr. Nicki.
Hi.
So for those that don't know, Dr. Nicki Monti is a psychotherapist, author, motivational speaker, spiritual mentor, and more. And I mean, she has been the therapist on the Two Corey show. She has done therapy for celebrities all over Los Angeles, and for myself. As a matter of fact, I met Dr. Nicki when I was doing a talk show in Ottawa, Illinois, and I would have authors on from time to time. And she was one of them when she had her. Was it your first book, Stuck in the Story No More? Was that your first one?
Yeah.
Okay, Stuck in the Story No More. Had her on as an author, and it just so happened that I had her on about 2 days after I had an engagement end. And I had been talking on the air about the planning of the wedding and all this. I was sharing my life on the air. So when that happened, it was kind of the first time that I let loose and just really for about a year, the show, it was a weekly show that turned into my therapy on the air. And I just didn't care. I had reached a point where I would go in there and do a talk show just staring at the clock, waiting for it to be over so I could just go home. So it was just a weird time. And so I met Dr. Nicki that way. Then later did another radio show where I was kind of starting an internet radio station, and you started doing a show with Dr. Nicki that, among other things, was essentially therapy for
For
you
me, yeah.
on the air.
Yep.
And then Dr. Nicki has also helped us off the air and different things, and I'm sure can help you too, and we can get into that a little bit later on. But if you're tuning in and you're like, who is this person? You want to find out more. Stucknomore.com is the website that we'll direct you to a little bit later on. But first and foremost, good morning, Dr. Nicki. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself that I can't just get from a bio?
Okay, good. You know so much about me that you haven't gotten from a bio. But I'm listening to that introduction and I'm thinking, okay, if people want free therapy, I guess they start a radio show. Get me on free.
It wasn't the original plan, but I felt like, yeah, I was afraid I was losing my mind. So you helped me through that for sure.
How long we've been together is that you remember me as the person on the Two Corys, which, you know, I also did Matchmaker, which is the thing that got me most of the things. And I was also on the Kardashians, which we'll skip right by that one. But,
well, I bet there's a lot of stories there.
Well, no, not really, because I only did one episode that they split into 2 episodes. I have a Susan story, but no. But the thing is about the Two Corys is I never advertised that I do the Two Corys because the publicity people I've had over the years.
Yeah, well, they're wrong.
Huh?
They're wrong. That was such a good show.
They're wrong.
Well, I know, but this is what they said to me. I said, I should put that on my resume. And they said, you shouldn't. And I said, why? And they said, because Corey Haim died. And I said, well, I did not kill him.
Right.
I don't understand what. In fact, I told him on air he was going to die.
Right.
I told him he was going to die if he didn't stop his behavior, and he did.
Right.
So actually, I'm kind of a genius. So instead of saying I should be embarrassed because someone I worked with died, I mean, hello.
Yeah. No, I disagree, and I've worked in marketing and PR my whole life.
There's pretty much nothing that we don't hear about in detail now, and you know, we're in such we're living in dystopic times. So I think that we're not there. But okay, so who am I? I am a psychotherapist, but I think of myself as a teacher more, because in truth, psychotherapy feels like a limited concept. You know, one of my very first long-term client was somebody that I had met when I was in training. So now I guess it's been 35 years, 40, I don't know. It's been a really long time, many governments later. And and she was just a sweetie, but she was very scared of therapy. And in fact, she never called it therapy at the beginning. For the first year or two, she didn't call it therapy. We would take walks and chat. We'd do chatting walks. We would hang out. We'd call it meeting together and all this thing. And she was very, very fragile. Fast forward, just the end of the tale is she became a social worker, made a beautiful family for herself with children and all of that. And I still get letters from her, letters, no, not emails, letters. That's how long it was. Yeah. So she was early. But wait, where did I start this conversation? Why was I saying that? So I know. And she came in one day and she said, I just realized, and this is an old knowing, but it still holds. I just realized that therapist is the rapist. And I went, oh dear. Maybe that's quite the direction I want to go in here. So
wow.
I do think it's a limiting word for what I do, because I'm a teacher and I have a whole war chest, you might call it, of tricks and treats for studying different things over the years. But I'm primarily a Jungian, which means I like depth therapy. And sometimes people won't give you enough time to do depth therapy. Everybody wants it very fast. I'll take a pill. I'll do, a kind of therapy. I don't have to work too hard in between. I don't have to take the process in my hands. So my hue and cry is that change is a matter of choice, but that you have to choose to change. And, people will come in all the time and they'll say, I'm struggling with such and such. I'm struggling with my anxiety. Okay, what do you mean you're struggling with it? Well, I mean, I have anxiety. Well, then you're not struggling with it. You just are accepting that you have it. Struggling means getting in there and fighting it. That takes information. That takes exercising. That takes all the things it takes. Say, well, I'm fighting with my weight. What are you doing to fight with it? No, I'm just struggling with my weight. How are you struggling with it? Well, I keep eating. Well, then you're not struggling with your weight. You're just accepting, and that's fine. But tell yourself this truth, and that's the key. It's to tell yourself the truth, and to know that you are the centerpiece of your own story, and that you get to change your relationship to your story if you really want to, and if you don't, own it. I'm going to be this person, and that's just what it is. Love me or leave me, So I'm a teacher, and I believe that we can change our relationship to our story. I myself have entirely changed my relationship to my origin story. We all have an origin story. And within that origin story, we have actually only one or two themes that follow us throughout our life. We think each situation is unique. It's not. It's not. We have these themes, and we find ever more creative ways to dance with those themes. So one of the first things is to figure out what your themes are. My theme was that I am unlovable. And I pursued proving that to be true over and over again. And so I'm going to start probably on every show. I'm going to do this now because we're beginning to publicize my new book, which is what I call a teaching memoir. And it's called The Divine Traumedy of Nikki Joy. And it's funny, and it's tragic, and it's scary, and it's dark, and it's light, and it has a happy ending. But and in the course of my life, I have changed. I've really shifted my story, my relationship to my story entirely. And I didn't even know that could be done. I thought, well, you learn to live with it. And yeah, I have these wounds, and poor me, and whatever it is, or screw you was more my thing. But I learned along the way to dance with it differently. And it's so cliche, but I truly learned to love and like myself. and to bring balance into my life in the process of doing that, or in order to do that, I had to change my relationship to that. And I'll tell a few stories about that along the way as we.
Is the book out, Nicki?
No,
The book is we're about to start pre-orders, and then the actual launch will be in October, but we're starting the pre-order process. It's not quite next month. We should be able to start with pre-orders, and of course, I'll send you guys. I did the audiobook myself, as an ex-actress.
Oh,
so
nice.
Why not? And it's I think it's really fun. Is maybe not quite the maybe in a future show I'll just read you a little bit of the either the preface or the intro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's going to be on all the platforms, and that's really exciting. And I really resisted having my name in the title, but I ended up, it was more substantial than just.
So how do you identify your couple of things you're dancing with? And I don't know what you call them. What do you call them again? Your
themes.
Sorry.
How do you identify? Well, if you listen very carefully to yourself, you will hear those themes traveling through your words, and certainly you will see those themes traveling through your ways. The question is, what initiated those themes? So, for instance, I was the queen of control. And, my story was I have to do everything myself. And I often say it in this way. This is the original thing. Was like, at first, because I always felt like an interruption in my mother's life. And I have proof that I was an interruption in my mother's life. So I was always needed to prove that I was enough. And I thought if I was enough, she would stop sending me away to boarding school, which I was at for 11 years, and she would do all these things. And so I learned to be very independent, we like to call it, in the circles where we, support control. So I was very, and it started out as, I can do this myself. Look, Mom, I'm doing this myself, And then over the years that traveled into, started to take another tone. And it was, no, don't worry about me. I'm okay. I'm doing it myself. And then over years that traveled into another tone, and it became, please, it's okay. I got this. I'm doing it myself. And eventually it became, get out of my way. I'm doing it myself. That doesn't invite good relationship. I'm just saying. It doesn't allow. So my journey was a journey into the heart, into believing that I deserved support. I deserved collaboration. I deserved, correspondence. And so it's been a long journey. And my favorite thing now is collaboration. And it was, I had all the things that people say. Oh, I can do it faster myself. I don't even teach it. I'd love to teach somebody to do this and have help on this, but I can do it better myself and do it faster myself. I'm good. It's okay. You have your own problems. You have your own, you have a lot on your plate. You're overwhelmed. That's okay. I got this. And it was very hard for me to receive. And as I say in the book, I was just heartbroken all the time. Heartbroken. Because nobody was stepping up to be with me. But I didn't realize, I had partners, I had lots of marriages, but it doesn't mean that I allowed partnership. I didn't I didn't know about partnership. And so I have lots of little stories I'll sprinkle along the way. So that was a very long answer. So what do? I like to look at origin stories to start to manage what your themes might be. So one of my major themes was I have to do everything myself. So you have this theme that you establish really early on, and then you set up defenses to prove that theme to be true. So if I never let anybody in, then I did have to keep doing it myself, right? If I never asked for help, then I did have to be, I could hire help, but getting help is different. Allowing help, allowing love, allowing vulnerability. It's a whole different thing. Just because you cry doesn't mean you're being vulnerable. P.S. You know, vulnerability is a deep process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So the thing about saying that you then learn to like continue it by proving it to be true.
Right. Those are defenses. So that was the first book where Steve and I started. So there are about 51 defenses that, I mean, there's subsets and everything, but so there are defenses. So defenses like anger or codependency or judgment, withdrawal, isolation, all of those are defenses. Everybody's defensive. And all people will say, don't be defensive. Well, guess what? Everybody's defensive. The idea is, are the defenses in charge of us, or are we in charge of the defenses? So it's useful. Fear is useful. I want to be afraid to go out and walk into the middle of traffic. That's a smart fear. I want to have the fear of putting my hand on an open fire. That's a smart fear. But to be afraid to let myself be loved, because I think that, I'm expecting disappointment, I'm expecting abandonment, not a smart fear, right? So proving the original point. Again, one good thing to do is to listen carefully to the things you say, right? And then watch the things you do in response to the things you say. So, obviously, I can point that out to people. I usually can point it out to them in the first session. Can hear, watch your body language, which is disconcerting, by the way. Now, my partner, Tom, is the first person I've been with in my lifetime. And, I've been with a few. When you read the book, I was like, it's a little scary. People are going to really have opinions about this. But I'm very telepathic. He is with me also telepathic. So he can read my mind. Mm-hmm. And now I know why people complained about it all these years, because it's really disconcerting.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I will know, though, usually in the first session, certainly by the second session, what your patterns are. I usually can tell just by watching and listening to the phrases you use.
Yeah.
So now I want to ask you, but we haven't really talked for a while.
I know, but so
do you think you know my patterns?
My life, yeah, the thing about, you're going to say this, the thing about my life that bothers me the most is
no
one's
been
okay. You know this answer, and if you screw around with it and try to get the right answer, so there's one of your themes. I have to have the right answer.
No one's been there for me.
No one's been there for you. Great, perfect. So if you have the right answer, maybe people will be there for you. Okay, so what you do about that is you have ways of making sure no one's there for you. You push people
no, that's
away.
the opposite of what I just said. How is that not the opposite of what I just said? Because I said no one's there for me.
This is how you play out. No, this is how you play out your theme. That's how you find what your theme is. This is not how to fix the theme or face it. This is first you have to know. You have to know what an apple looks like before you draw an apple. If you're an artist, yeah. Right? Otherwise, you're just throwing paint at the canvas.
But why would someone who loves people and wants to be loved then create a scenario where they can't be loved?
Because they think that the only way they can be loved is to do what they've been doing, is to maybe over care for them, or to keep proving that they're lovable by doing things and managing their lives or whatever it is. I'm not sure how that works with you yet, but something like that. So we do what we do because we think it's the best choice we can make.
So then how did you get to the point? Or was there a catalyst or a thing that happened that made you go, okay, this is not working for me, but you're in the middle of it. You've created a whole life around it. So then how do you get to undo what you do? It's almost like I've always eaten sugar, so of course I'm going to grab a candy bar.
Of course you're gonna,
now I know Dr. Nick is going to help you in a second, but I'm gonna give a really quick, easy answer. And this is how all this started with Dr. Nikki and I. The first book, Stuck in the Story No More, is literally about, and that's why I'm going to recommend it to people. Visit stucknomore.com. I'm not trying to sell more books or anything. But I'm saying this is how it helped me. You will find as you start to do this, because I had to do it for myself, how cyclical your life is, and how without even realizing it, you're like, whew, I got out of that relationship. I'm not in that circle anymore. I got out of that job. I'm not in that circle anymore. And then what you come to find out is, oh crap, I'm the one that's creating the circle every time.
That's right.
I'm the one that's making this circle go like this every single time. And I'm 50 and I'm still doing it, even though I've read the book. But so I'll pass it back to you, Dr. Nick.
So, and there's and do sell books. That's fine with me. And there's don't hesitate. And there's a workbook that goes with that too. So there's two: Stuck in the Story and Stuck in the Story No More, and or Stuck No More, and the Stuck No More workbook. It's two separate books in that particular one. So we develop these defenses because we don't know any other way to support ourselves until we know another way to support ourselves now. And so what was your question before you did?
I was saying, how do you, what happened in your life, or how did you,
yes,
how did you stop? Like, how do you get off the Ferris wheel if the Ferris wheel?
Yeah. Well, there were many stops, and then I go to a new level of the work, and many, more stops, more like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've been sober 43 years. So that was obviously a big turning point. I wasn't going to be a therapist, but I became a therapist. That was an obvious turning point. But these were the results of the other things that happened, where I can't live this anymore. This is too challenging for my, I'm in pain all the time. I want to stop being in pain. So, but the final turn of the corner, but it was after decades of hard work, and throughout the book, I say, whoa, when is done? I thought I had now, and what? Now when I'm at this new juncture, what? There are stages and ages. There are transformations, if we're lucky, and certainly transitions that we go through and we need to attend. And there's not a lot of honoring of those transitions. We're not taught that. There used to be lots of rituals of transition. I mean, even now, I don't have children, so I'm not complaining about this, but I do notice, for instance, kids are graduating from kindergarten. You know what I mean? And they're graduating from kindergarten, and then they graduate from first grade, and then they graduate from second grade. So when they get to graduation in high school, it's like, it's another graduate. They get trophies for everything. It just seems like we're not picking out rituals to honor. And I think rituals are really important in the other worlds, and what we call first, lower world, so to speak. around tribal communities and things like that. They have lots of rituals to celebrate things, and we go from day to day, job to job, whatever it is, and we forget to pause and celebrate. So that's one of the things. But to answer that question, the final ritual, I will say, long time, is what I called the long goodbye. Was the 18-month illness of my husband, who died in 2020, and it was a long process, and it was a process that threw me into a new kind of service that I didn't ever want, and did not even imagine I was capable of. And what happened during that was that I stopped having expectations of him. I mean, we were together when he died. We had been together 33 and a half years. Very challenging relationship. But I stopped having expectations, and I started truly living in the moment, because there was nowhere else to live. There just was nowhere else to live. I didn't have the energy or the time to spend my, be in my history endlessly, which some people do. And I didn't have any knowing about the future. There was no big plan. I always have these plans. Like right now, I'm doing the book, and I'm getting the book out, and I'm going to go on podcasts and tours and hopefully speaking engagements and all of this. So there's sort of a plan. Right? I didn't have a plan. I couldn't have a plan. He was just dying. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very interesting process, and it shifted my DNA. But it shifted my DNA because I entered it as a sacred process. And I entered it as a sacred process because I had been working for so many decades on healing myself and others. The greatest way to learn is to teach. So anyway, teach what you need to learn. So that was really the turnaround for me. But I had a lot of, it's kind of like saying, how did you decide how to build your house? And what the layout was going to be, and how big the rooms, how many bathrooms, how big it was. Is it made of stone or is it made of wood? Is it painted green or is it white? How did you make all those decisions? Well, along the way. And first, I formed the foundation, because without the foundation, everything was going to fall. No matter how well the rest of the stuff was, it was going to fall. There are those people, for instance, in California who live in Malibu who build their house on stilts. Not my deal, just tell you right now. Build your house on stilts. I don't care how firm the ground. I don't care what I am not going to be living in a house on stilts. But really, I was living in a house on stilts inside myself. Wow. And it kept falling. And then I'd rebuild it, and then it'd fall again, and I'd rebuild it. Now, in a real world way, they do that in Malibu, which is, how many times does your house have to fall down before you decide maybe I need to put a different platform underneath? And that's what eventually happened to me. I found a different way to, and I, because I changed so much inside, I attracted a partner who is solid and loving, and he's a real partner. He's a partner in everything. And it's been an astonishing experience. And where I wasn't vulnerable, I fell into a new vulnerability. I mean, I'd been teaching vulnerability for a long time, but there was just this, I thought you hit vulnerability and you kind of hung out there. Then I found out that vulnerability is like Alice's rabbit hole. You just fall and fall and fall and fall and fall. And it's very scary for those of us who have made control their watchword. Mm-hmm. But there was just falling and falling and falling. I remember very early on with Tom, we have a very sensual erotic relationship on top of all the other wonderment we have. And so we were in bed and we're having this wonderful experience, and all of a sudden I just burst into tears. And he grabbed me and he said, "What's happening? Are you okay?" And I said, I don't know. I'm so scared." Because the feeling of happiness and the feelingness of safety, the feeling of safety was so excruciatingly beautiful that it brought me to tears and fears simultaneously.
Wow.
And I let myself go there. And it's been over and over. I mean, it doesn't happen the same way each time, but I'm aware.
Yeah.
And then I want to take it back sometimes. And I want to go back to being the boss girl, the boss bitch, the boss bitch. But I don't like her so much. She's handy once in a while, but I don't like
Yeah.
her so much anymore.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so that, it's been part of my journey. And so how do you do it? You start at the beginning. You tell yourself the truth about what you're doing. You understand that the world you have is the world you've created, whether you like it or not. And the idea is, and Steve's heard me say this many times, we always want to look at the payoff of what we're already doing. I had to look at, what am I getting out of being uh, so guarded? I'm very flamboyant, clearly, so I didn't always look guarded, but I was very guarded and very, very self-protective. And I wasn't living from the heart.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we could go on easily for hours and hours, and this is why I literally said before we got on, I said, Dr. Nicki said, "So what are we going to talk about?" I said, "God only knows," and this is why I said it, because, and this is what happens with Cheryl and I every morning on the show is we have a stack of papers of all the things that we're going to talk about, and we get to about a quarter of them because you go this way, something happens, something comes up. And of course, catching up with on top of you being a therapist and everything else, catching up with an old friend. It's been a while since we've had a good long chat. So so it's great to have you on. We're going to have Dr. Nicki on. By the way, we've been talking with Dr. Nicki Monti. Stucknomore.com, by the way, is the website. It's up on the screen if you're watching on video. You guys can go there to see all kinds of different things. Not only can you find your books, find videos. There are different ways that you can get help for yourself. I see a 30-day stress buster course. You can also book a consultation yourself with Dr. Nicki. And
I work on Zoom. I work with people all over the world, so don't hesitate, no matter where you are. You saw the cool new website, right?
Yes, it's fantastic.
That
Yes,
happened about a year ago. I know, I like it. My last website looked like I threw up on it. I mean, it was just it was so chaotic. And I found these wonderful people who just did this beautiful job. I think it's a beautiful job.
It is. It's fantastic. It's stucknomore.com is the website. And then on all the social media and things, you can find Dr. Nicki on Facebook and Instagram and all over the place. So we're going to have Dr. Nicki on weekly. And, we'll, of course, have our own questions. It'll range everything from things that are just going on in the world and having our thoughts on that from a psychological standpoint, as well as our own personal things and yours, those residents in Touhyville. If you have questions, we can keep you anonymous. It doesn't have to be, we won't use your name if you don't want. And, but if you've got things that you struggle with and you want, questions answered. Now, obviously, this is the Reader's Digest version. The best idea is to dive into the work, wholeheartedly. But you might have some things that you wonder, just like we did here. We've already learned things that we didn't know we were going to dive into. So you guys are more than welcome to message us on social media, on the Touhyville Facebook page, or the Q, or 98 Gold, or you can always email us, Steve or Cheryl at touhyville.com, and we'll get those questions up.
I just want to say one more thing. First of all, thank you. And thank you, Cheryl, for your questions. And I saw a little tear come out. It was very cool. So I love that. So the first thing we want to do with ourselves is to commit to telling ourselves the truth, because we're the only person that we need to fix, so to speak, or that we need to heal, or that we need to recognize. And so, just for the listeners, or I guess viewers to some degree, you is to ask yourself today, what do I routinely say to myself? What do I routinely do? How do I feel when people approach me, for instance? Or what do I think I have to do to be more popular or fit in better or more like? Is your thing about belonging? Is it about being an outcast? Is it, what is the thing that fires you up? The thing that fires you up, if it really fires you up, is something in you that's unmet. It doesn't have to do with the world around you, although certainly the world around us can inspire and conspire to upset and overwhelm us. However, it's up to us to stay in the center of ourselves, and you might call that the eye of the storm, right? To stay that way. All of our reactivities are ours. No one makes us mad. No one makes us sad. No one disappoints us. We have those reactions based on our relationship to ourselves and then therefore the world around us. So it's good to kind of write down the things you hate about the world right now, or that you hate about your partner, or you hate about your kid, or whatever it is, or that really distresses you. And then look at how that thing works in you. Do you feel heartbroken a lot? If you feel heartbroken a lot, what do you get out of feeling heartbroken a lot? And how do you break your own heart? So that's my takeaway for today.
Oh, that's a good one. Dr. Nicki, thank you so much. As always, we're going to take a break. We'll be back here in Touhyville with more fun. We'll see you in a little bit.